for Students. Mr. Lawrence here. And today, after today's video, you're going to be able to say I can undistribute or I can factor by the GCF. Now, before we get to really do this, by the way, if you're wondering, we learned the little F word. The big F word is factor. Yeah, factor is the big F word. All right. When we do this, let me put some numbers in there. Sorry. First, before we talk about this undistributing thing, we're going to practice distribution. We're going to make sure we're doing it right. Remember, distribution is like passing out candy to everybody in the row. If I pass out candy to, let me see here, Shelby, and then David, and I skip Ashley, and I give some to Alex, Ashley's upset, right? I got to make sure I give candy to everybody. It would only be fair. So when I distribute, I have to make sure I give out candy to everybody in the row. So I'm going to multiply 3 times x squared, which is really tough, 3x squared, and 3 times negative 5, which is negative 15. I just distributed, right? Okay, here's another example of distribution. I'm going to distribute the 5x squared. It's the candy. The numbers inside the quantity are the people in the row. Make sure I give candy to everybody. So 5 times 6 is 30. X squared times x squared is x to the 4th. 5 times 5 is 25. X squared times x to the 1st, thank you Ashley Leonard, is x cubed. And then 5 times negative 7 is negative 35. And there's no x over there, so I just have an x squared coming along for the ride. We just distributed. You should be pros at that. Easy stuff. Big D word, right? Okay, now we're ready to start learning about the little f word. And at first I'm going to call it undistributing. And I don't want you to look at anything else. Let me put my shade up here. Where's my shade? Shade. I can't find my shade. My shade appears to be missing. I must have hidden it. Okay, no problem. I'm not going to waste any more time. Oh, there it is. Okay, I only want you to look at this first problem here. This 20x squared minus 10. Your job is to undistribute it. Okay, or actually factor it, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And what I mean by undistributed, I want you to make it look like this black problem here, 3 times quantity of x squared minus 5, or 5x squared times quantity of 6x squared plus 5x minus 7. So you're going to pull out what's called the greatest common factor. This is actually called factoring by GCF. So we are factoring by GCF. Okay, and you're actually going to undistribute. Now what you're going to do is you're going to find the greatest common factor. And some of you will be really good at this and some of you are shaky on it. I'm going to take the smallest number. In this case, it's 10. The smallest term is 10. And I'm going to list its factors, 1 and 10, and then 2 and 5. Now, some of you are thinking, Mr. Lawrence, if I can just tell the GCF by looking at it, can I do that? Absolutely. But some of you aren't going to get the GCF. You're going to say 2 is the GCF. And while 2 is a common factor of 20 and 10, it is not the greatest common factor. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start at the greatest of my 4 factors that I listed. If I listed 12 factors, I start at the greatest of 12. And I'm going to ask myself, well, obviously 10 goes into 10. Does it go into 20? Absolutely. There is my GCF. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide out my GCF. Now, it doesn't actually disappear from the problem. It comes out front of a quantity. Where the quantity come from? Well, I'm making it look like a distribution problem, so I'm going to need a quantity. Now, 20x squared divided by 10x would be 2x squared. Negative 10 divided by 10 is negative 1. And there you go. We just factored by GCF, or what I like to call undistributing. Factoring by GCF is the proper term. Don't worry, we're going to look at a few more examples. This video will be longer than last night's. All right, let's take the smallest of our numbers, and it looks like it's 24. So I'm going to list the factors of 24. 3 and 8, 4 and 6, and I believe that's it. Okay, remember, I'm going to start with the greatest of these factors. I'm starting with the 24 and ask myself, does 24 go into 48? Yes. Does it go into 24? Absolutely. Does it go into 36? Not evenly. So I will not use 24. Then I go down to 12. Does 12 go into 48? It does. Does it go into 24? Yep. Does it go into 36? You bet your boots. There you go. So my GCF is 12. I'm going to divide all three terms by 12. But 12 is not disappearing from the problem. It stays out front of a quantity. Sorry, I'm in my fat pen. Hold on. There we go. And now I just divide. 36 divided by 12 is 3, and it's x squared. 24x divided by 12 is negative 2x. And 48 divided by 12 is 4. And there you go. You just factored by the GCF. All right, let's look at a couple more examples. Don't worry, we got lots of examples. I know you have some questions. It's okay that you don't know everything. All right, let's take a look at this one. Now this one's going to be a little bit trickier. You might be thinking this smallest number is 6, and you're not quite right. We're going to go ahead and do the 6 part. List the factors of 6. And I'm going to find the greatest number of those factors that goes into this one and this one. Well, 6 does not go into 9. 3 goes into 9, and 3 goes into 6. 3 must be the GCF of the coefficients. Now, here's why I say it's not as easy as the other ones. It's not difficult. We have a 6x to the 4th minus a 9x squared, right? I need a little more room to show some work. We already know the GCF, part of the GCF is 3. But what's the smaller of the variables? Well, x squared, right? X squared is also a part of my GCF. I mean, if I wanted to, couldn't I rewrite x to the 4th as x times x times x times x? And sure enough, right there, there's hiding an x squared, isn't there? And this would be an x times x, which is an x squared. And you see, x squared is common to both terms. So my GCF is actually 3x squared. So let me get back to this problem. So my GCF is actually 3x squared. So I'm going to have a 3x squared in front of my quantity. 6 divided by 3 is 2. X to the 4th divided by x squared, x squared. 9 divided by 3 is 3. X squared divided by x squared cancel. There you go. It's really not that hard. Don't worry, we're going to do a couple more examples. All right, I'm going to go and find the GCF of my numbers, of my coefficients. And the smallest number is 12, so I'm going to list the factors of 12. And 12 goes into 12, of course, does not go into 16. It's got to be common to all three to be my GCF. 6 goes into 12, does not go into 16. 4 goes into 12, 4 goes into 16, and 4 goes into 24. So 4 is a part of my GCF. So I need a 4, right? But I've got some variables. And what exponent of x is contained in all of them? Well, here's a hint. It's always going to be the smallest power, x cubed. And I can show you why. Can't I rewrite x to the 5th as x cubed times x squared? Can't I rewrite this as x cubed times x to the Ashley Leonard? And then this, of course, is x cubed. You see how there's an x cubed in all three terms? That means x cubed is common. There we go. So I take my GCF, I put it out front, and then I divide. 24 divided by 4 is 6. X to the 5th divided by x cubed is x squared. 16 divided by 4 is 4. X to the 4th divided by x to the 3rd is plain old x. And then 12 divided by 4 is 3. X cubed divided by x cubed cancel, and there we go. We just factored by the GCF. I'm so proud of you guys. You're doing such a wonderful job. All right, couple more examples here, making sure we're getting good at it. 8 and 9, I'm trying to trick you, but that's okay. You guys are pretty smart. You can handle it. Okay, so one more time. I GCF the coefficients. Smallest number is 15. The factors of 15. 15 does not go into 20. 5 goes into 20. 5 goes into 15. There's my GCF of my numbers, of my coefficients. All right. Now, I look at my two variables, and I take the smallest power. X to the 10th is contained in both. So my GCF is 5x to the 10th. He goes out front. 15 divided by 5 is 3. The x to the 10th cancel. 20 divided by 5 is 4. X to the 12th divided by x to the 10th is x squared. I'm making this look easy, but you know what? It is that easy. It really is. I change colors here. Okay, I'm going to look for the GCF. I'm on problem 8 here. Oops. GCF of my coefficients. The smallest number is 16, 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 3 doesn't go in, 4 and 4. Okay, and then I see does 16 go into 16? Of course. Does it go into 32? You bet. So I'm going to divide by 16. And then I look at my exponents and I take the smaller power. X squared and x squared. All right, so 16x squared goes out front. 32 divided by 16 is 2. X to the 4th divided by x squared is x squared. And then I subtract 1. Right? Because 16x squared divided by 16x squared is 1. There you go. Okay. I do this last two on purpose because a lot of you are just going to want to not have a minus 1 there. Okay. One more time, and then we'll call it a wrap on this video. It's actually not as long as I thought it was going to be. Now remember, if you're not getting it, you should be watching it more than once. You should be coming in and asking questions, you know, whether it's 4th period, 6th period, lunch, after school, or of course you can, you know, ask in class. There's never anything wrong with asking in class. Just ask Logan or Spencer or Jared. They ask plenty of questions. Ashley and Nicole and Kayla, they ask lots of questions. Jake does. Jacob does. So make sure you're asking questions. Okay. We're going to look at my coefficients. I'll take the smallest of them, which is 8. And I'm going to list the factors of 8. Then I'm going to see, does 8 go into 8? It does. Does 8 go into 32? Yep. Does 8 go into 40? It sure does. My greatest common factor is 8. Now, you'll find that a lot of you would rather start at the 2. But when you start at the 2, you have more work to do. Trust me, start at the greatest of the common factors. Because if the largest one is great, there's less to do. Less work. So I'm definitely going to be dividing each term by 8. And then I look at my exponents, my Ashley Leonard, and I take the smallest power. So I'm dividing each one by x, or specifically 8x. My GCF is 8x. My quantity has 5x cubed. This is going to be a 4x, and this is going to be a plus 1. Don't throw it away. It's not subtraction. It doesn't become 0. 8x divided by 8x is 1. All right. Now, I'm just curious. This one's a little bit harder. Could you GCF something like this? Let's go with 40x to the 5th y cubed z squared plus, say, 20 x to the 4th y to the 5th z. And let's just do that one for now, okay? Well, again, same exact thing. A little bit uglier, but not more difficult. GCF, smallest of two numbers is 20. Oops, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. GCF is going to be 20, right? So I'm going to divide by 20. Now, this is where some of you are going to get confused, and this is really the easiest part. By the way, I'll do that. Okay, x to the fifth and x to the fourth. What's the smaller exponent? X to the fourth. Y cubed, y to the fifth. What's the smaller exponent? Y cubed. Z to the second, Z to the first, Z to the first. See how simple that was? I didn't try to do the GCF of x to the fifth y cubed z squared and x to the fourth y fifth z. I did the GCF of x to the fifth and x to the fourth. I did the GCF of y cubed and y to the fifth. And then I did the GCF of z squared and z. And that's what I did. It's so simple. Just like when we were multiplying, we multiplied our coefficients, we multiply our x's, we multiply our y's, we multiply our z's. If you try to do it all at once, it's intimidating. If you do it as 4 separate problems, it's really pretty easy. It just takes a little while because there's 4 of them. All right, so I'm going to write my GCF out front. And then I divide. 40 divided by 20 is 2. X to the fifth divided by x to the fourth is x. The y cubes actually cancel. Z squared divided by z is z. And if you want to do the Ashley Leonard, you go right ahead. Okay. Now here, I've got 20 divided by 20. Well, that's a 1. X to the fourth divided by x to the fourth, they cancel out. I'm not going to put another 1 there because it's multiplication. 1 times 1 is 1. I've already got a 1 there. I'm not going to put another one. Y to the fifth divided by y cubed is y squared. And the z's cancel. And there we go. There's my simplest answer. All right, so now Mr. Lawrence has made sure you're good at the big D word, distribute. He's helped you get really good at the little f word, FOIL. And he's just starting to teach you about the big F word, which is factoring. And I see this video is already on 17 minutes, so Mr. Lawrence is going to sign off. Have a good night, everybody.